Hello all, today's topic is asynchronous module dependency and how we can use that in the BAW. So to start with, I have this simple file, JavaScript file. It has two functions, add and subtract. So what add function does is it accepts two arguments and it simply prints the resultant sum of these two arguments. Similarly, I have subtract function, but I will be using only add function. So I added this file as a web file and I added this in a which view in the included scripts. So once I add it, so I can use this add or subtract function, anywhere in the event handlers or even in the um, inline JavaScript. So it's a simple CV and I added that CV in the coach. So let me run it. So and let me open the console. So you can see, it printed twice because I added those functions in the load and inline JavaScript. This is fine. But question arises, what happens if I have I have same function name in the other JavaScript files? So what I mean by that is, let me add another file, create character1.js. So it also has, add and subtract, right? And but with different function body. So what happens, if I call add function, right? So let me run it, then see what happens. See, this time the add function was taken from the traditional one, new JavaScript file. So it may be the order of the files. So let me add traditional calculate.js first and then run it. So if I run it, so still the function was taken from the traditional calculate.js. The sum is because that functions is not returning any sum. Okay. So now you see the problem with this approach, right? If you add any functions globally, your browser or your compiler doesn't know from which file it needs to take the function. So that's why we can use AMD dependencies. So let's see how we can do that. So for the demo purposes, I created one new function, new calc.js, and I defined a function, factory function, and that factory function returns two other functions, add and subtract. So once we define this function, what I did was zip it to a folder. So that zip folder contains app.calc, the new calc function file, new calc file. So that file has this function. Let me remove these files, and I created another file called custom amd.js. So what it is, so I created this packages. So the package name is, we need to tell the location of the file. So this, as you can see, this location will point to the app calc.zip, but we need to mention from which file we need to take our functions. So obviously I added new calc. You don't need to put .js. So here the name can be different. You can use any of the name you like. Okay, so let me add this to the to our CV. So once I add that custom AMD file, so it looks like this one. So since we defined our function name as new calc, what we can do is we can simply write new calc, because this name has to match with whatever you are requiring in your custom AMD.js file. So once you do that, so the areas can be different one than the new calc. Let me put a test calculator. Oh, let me add that. So now what it does is, so AMD this dependency, once you add this one, right, new calc as a module ID, any event, right? So for example, load, unload, view, change, they run in some kind of order. First load will and then change, and then view will be called, unload will be called later, when you are going out of the browser, right? You're closing the browser. So whatever function you write, right? So that those functions will be executed once these module dependencies are completely loaded. Okay, so since I added test calculator dependency, so let me call that. You can, but this time you cannot call the simply call the add. You need to add from which a module you're calling the function. So let me test this. See the console. Okay, so there's one error because I added that. So I called add function without mentioning from which module I'm calling that function, or add is not referenced anywhere. So let me run it. So this time you can see the function is called. So this is how you require the AMD in your coach views. So the other variant is, instead of adding the that custom AMD in the included scripts and then calling it in AMD dependencies, what you can do is you can require in the inline JavaScript only. So I'm requiring that new calc. So once you define your packages, you can require those packages in your function. So the advantage of this approach is these modules will be loaded once you call that function. So it doesn't load all the files in the loading phase. It will be loaded when you call those functions. So for that you need to wrap this required in your calling function. Okay, so in out of the box, JS files, you might have not seen this main. You might have seen only name and location. So the reason is, so if you observe your app.js, sorry, app character zip, so you see the new calc.js file. So if you rename this file as main, okay, then it you don't need to mention this main. So if your main file, okay, wherever you're writing function is other than main, other than the name main, then you need to explicitly mention what is your main file is. So thank you guys, thanks for watching, see you next time.